post-election edition of This Week in Missouri Politics. I want to jump right into the show. We're going to bring you the next floor leader of the Missouri House of Representatives, Dr. John Patterson from Lee's Summit. Welcome to the show and congratulations.
Scott, glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
There's a lot of folks that watch this show. They've seen you on the past or heard your name discussed. Tell folks who you are. Tell folks about your family and what you do for a living.
Well, I've been in the Missouri House for 4 years now. I was a practicing general surgeon, although I don't do surgery anymore as of this year. Live in Lee's Summit. I have my wife and 2 kids, 11 and 8, Andrew and Leah. And we're just kind of do the suburban family thing. My son is very much into soccer. They do great in school, and so yeah. But I've been in the House for 4 years, and it's been a great experience.
I would ask how you won this race, but I have a touch of insight. We do the F-150 campaign tour where I fire up the truck and go around the state. And I ran into you once planned in Kansas City. Then I had no idea you're going to be at this nice, the social bar and grill in South County. Yeah. And there you are. Yep. You probably, you had to do 2,000 miles on the car?
I think it was 35,000 total is what we came to.
I would have said 20, but I would believe 35. Tell folks how you actually won that race.
Well, I think, in these leadership races, and it was a great race. Everybody that ran was a great candidate. I just tried to go around to each of the members in their districts, and they really appreciated that, and meet with them and talk with them, whether they're a new candidate or a current member, about issues that really matter to them and things that matter to their districts and their campaigns. So I was able to do that. I was able to hit most of the representatives and the candidates. And at the end of the day, I just got more votes, but we all kind of united as a caucus after that. And I think we'll be united going forward.
What do you say to somebody that maybe didn't decide to vote for you in the leadership race, but wants to be part of a constructive team in January?
Yeah, the nice thing about our race is it was never contentious. It was just 4 people going out and then telling them about the vision for the caucus that they have. We voted, the numbers were in. To anybody that didn't vote for me, I don't have any hard feelings. I told everybody as we went through,
sure.
This is not personal. After the vote, let's all get together, support the guy that won, and move forward together. And I've received a lot of phone calls and texts from people that didn't vote for me, but they say that now that they're willing to support me and are happy for me, and that's tremendously gratifying to get the support of people that weren't necessarily with you, but want to be going forward.
Might have been nobody that hit more doors in different parts of the state than you did. The Republicans, I'll be honest with you, I thought between gas prices, inflation, it was lined up to be a big year for Republicans. It's kind of funny, the standard, if you told my old boss, Mark Richardson, the standard for a bad night was 112 seats, his mind would be blown. But you returned to supermajority with 112 seats, a banner number by all accounts. However, you did lose 3 seats. It was, I guess folks are so accustomed to you guys just winning everything that it wasn't quite the night you're accustomed to having. Why is that?
I think you're right about that. We're so used to winning so much. Yeah. And I think part of it is that we did follow the national trends. Mm-hmm. And part of it is that the majority that we had, maybe we didn't deserve that in the first place. That all the campaigns that we've had in the past, they were so good, we were able to have candidates, and now it's kind of moved back to more of a political equilibrium. For example, I'll give you Chuck Basie's seat in District 47. We held that seat mostly on the strength of Chuck Basie, and the demographics and the numbers, they just made it very hard for us to keep. And so I think you're just seeing us move back to a political equilibrium.
And at some point, you tip your hat to the other side, right?
Absolutely.
Representative Crystal Quaid and their team, they ran hard too, right? They were out there competing for every vote, and then sometimes you tip your hat to the other side and you did a good job.
You have to do that. They ran good campaigns. In Springfield, they had some good candidates. Candidates out there were knocking doors. They had an organized plan, and at the end of the day, you have to tip your cap and say, well done.
I heard in some of your comments you made as you made your case to your colleagues for floor leader that you thought the supermajority was on the line. The governor's race governor's race will be up next cycle. You said the supermajority would be on the line this session. What did you mean by that?
I do. I think if you just look back on this past election, we thought we could have as high as 120. We ended up with 111. So we have to ask ourselves, what happened? And some of it is national trends. Some of it is just kind of our majority was so big. But we have members now that won their races with 47 votes, 100 votes, 30 votes. All those seats will be up for grabs in the next cycle. And so if we aren't careful and have a message that speaks to the broad majority of people, those members are in trouble and we could lose those seats. And we only need to lose about 3 more seats or 2 more seats to lose our supermajority. So that's what I told the members is, as we move forward in this next session, let's be mindful of that. We want to advance our conservative agenda, but we want to do it in a way that speaks to urban, suburban, and rural communities.
So what do you do? What do those priorities look like to advance that agenda?
Well, I think you have to start with things that have broad support. So when I was talking to people at the doors, it was always inflation and safety. So one of the things that we can do, although we don't have as much power to change inflation, the things that we can do are, for example, tax cuts. I would like to see us see if we can do more tax cuts, because when people are paying more for groceries, it's always good that they have more money in their pocket. So I would like to do things that have broad appeal to the communities back home.
When you break that down, obviously an issue that was talked about mostly by the Democrats this time was abortion. That's an issue that usually the House is with gusto wants to address. Did you find any room in your caucus as well? Maybe we've outlawed abortion and we've done some things there. Did you find that maybe in order to keep that supermajority, is that an issue you push on, or is that an issue you maybe wait and see how some of the fallout from this Dobbs verdict that actually is enacted in the state?
Well, Missouri is a pro-life state. I am proud to be pro-life. Missouri will continue to be a pro-life state. I do think that there are things that we can address that are pro-life, that continue to honor our pro-life principles. For example, postpartum care for women that have babies. You know, if you're too wealthy that you don't qualify for Medicaid, but you're not there where you can afford private health insurance, you're kind of in this gap. So what I'd like to see is for us to help those women.
It used to be something that no one ever talked about, but I know a lot of folks that when you say that term, they might not even know what you're really talking about.
Right.
But postpartum issues, even be their mental health issues, I know there's a lot of families have been touched by that. And boy, I think that is something that you know, frankly, folks will sit in these chairs in our opinion maker panel segment and say, well, Republicans care about life right up till that baby's born.
Right.
Boy, that is an issue that I think touches more folks, and now more folks are willing to talk about that issue. So you're aware of this. That may be an issue that that really does go, like you said, to all 3 parts of the state.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that has broad appeal, and I think that is something that we can address in the next session.
You know, looking forward, Kansas City's got a lot of things going well for it. The World Cup. Got to be, you helped bring that to Missouri. What an honor for Kansas, and what a validation for a lot of the things Kansas City is doing to have that international event come. That's got to be something you got to feel good about. When you look back on your career, playing a role in setting, and for the state doing its part in bringing that to Missouri, that's going to be a big deal.
Right. I cannot wait for the World Cup. You know, my son's a soccer player. He's 8 years old, plays in soccer league, and he's very excited about it. It's going to be great for the state. Almost $1 billion in economic activity. Kansas City had to work hard for it. The legislature had to pass the bill to get it done. Very excited about it. It was thrilling to work with Lieutenant Governor Mike Kehoe to get that done. He has been such an advocate for that. And 2026 is going to be very exciting.
So many good things happening in Kansas City. And you get a chance to, like, if you have your caucus over there, you could show the state and your people from all over the state some of the things in Kansas City. But really, you get to show the world. I mean, literally, that's not an overstate. When the World Cup comes, you're bringing top businessmen from all over the world to Kansas City and get to show off, the Fountain City, right?
Absolutely. You know, I'm very bullish on Kansas City. Kansas City is doing great. It's a great place to come and live and work and play. And then in 2026, the eyes of the world will be down upon it. So we're very excited about it.
If you had to ask the governor, 2 World Cups or 1 more Chiefs Super Bowl, I think he might have won Super Bowl championship, though, right?
Yeah, that's
luckily those aren't the
first world problems.
Yeah, luckily those aren't the choices.
Yeah.
So you look to next session, you'll be working with Dean Plocker. Tell folks about Dean Plocker and your relationship with him.
I have a great relationship with Dean Plocker. He is going to be a great speaker. I think he's going to do a great job for us. He has the confidence of the entire caucus. And what I told the caucus that I want to do is, the speaker will set the priorities, the speaker with the members. My job is to serve the speaker and the members. So that's really what I'm going to be focused on. But I'm very optimistic about Speaker Plocker's speakership.
As next session moves forward, you mentioned tax cuts. You know, there are some issues. Rural broadband. There's still some ARPA money to spend. What do you see as a bigger challenge? I mean, the thing that used to be talked about all the time was protecting the state's AAA credit rating. Can you do some of these things and protect that credit rating that Governor Nixon spoke so much about?
Absolutely. I think you have to take a look at it. We want to take care of those priorities first, and rural broadband is a priority. But in terms of doing things for the citizens back home, we always, as Republicans, want to look to see, can we cut taxes, can we cut spending, so that their hard-earned dollars can go back home to them.
Last question. I've interviewed several folks in Republican leadership. To be candid, none of them look quite like you. It is
Probably a good thing.
I don't know. It is interesting. It is a milestone. I think it's a very good thing about the party and the state. You're the first person that wasn't an old white guy, besides Catherine Hanaway, to trod these halls and set them. That's got to be kind of an honor, right?
It is. You know, in my life, I've never really thought of it in those terms. It's just not a big deal to me. But I do recognize that diversity is an issue, and we have a diverse caucus going forward. We have an African American member in our caucus. We have a member of Indian descent. We have people in the LGBT community. And most importantly, we have people of diverse ideas, whether that's rural, suburban, or urban. So we're a diverse
on some
caucus.
level, because you don't look like the last five, you don't look like Ron Richard. Do you think that on some level that does make somebody who has a diversity of thought, who maybe has diversity of sexual orientation or diversity of race, do you think that in some ways makes you a little more approachable for not even a legislator, but an interest group or someone to approach you with an idea that might be very good for the state, but they might have been a little apprehensive to approach someone if they weren't a little different?
I hope so. I hope it does. And I hope it gets people into politics and makes them look at the Republican caucus in maybe a different light. And it lets them know, hey, we're open to all people and all ideas, and my office is open, and I love meeting with people, and I hope they'll come in and talk about the ideas that they have.
Well, House Floor Leader, Dr. John Passion, thank you for joining us. Hope you'll come back as you start to enact that strategy and priorities you laid out and talk about it here on This Week in Missouri Politics.
Thank you, Scott.
Be right back, but first I want to tell you about, a big shout out to a buddy of mine over in Kansas City, Pete Mundo. He made his bet, he did his naked lap around the station. I only wish I would have been there in Corporate Woods with a couple old deer poaching spotlights to help him out with it. Shout out to Mundo. That's a bet, kept his word. We'll be right back.
For more than a century, the St. Louis Carpenters Union has shaped our communities. Through trusted alliances, we deliver skilled professional craftspeople while our business partners provide the kind of quality jobs that keep our economy humming. It's a blueprint that has worked since 1882. Turning Missouri into a right-to-work state stalls progress, wipes out jobs, and kills momentum. Right to work is wrong for everyone. Let's keep Missouri moving forward. Visit carpdc.org to learn more.
All rise for Judge Mike Carter, Sundays on ABC 30, host of the Cowboy and Judge Show. Tune in for community advocate Judge Mike Carter and his celebrity guests as they discuss today's hot topics and big issues here at home in Missouri. Hear about the power of good from community leaders, business owners, students, charities, and tons of familiar faces. Court is in session with Judge Mike Carter on the Cowboy and Judge Show. Available at MikeCarter.com or Sundays on ABC 30.
The Cowboy Judge Show. Giddy up. Giddy up.
Data captured by our state-of-the-art monitors helps us pinpoint the timing and location of severe weather more accurately and respond to trouble more quickly. Ameren, Missouri's investment in smart technologies like this is one way we're improving reliability and restoring power faster than ever. Responding to trouble before trouble hits. That's energy at work. Ameren, Missouri.
Post-election edition of This Week in Missouri Politics. Too much to talk about for an entire panel, so we brought in two of the top consultants, one from both parties. Ryan Burke, you had to have a good night as a Democrat consultant. First time in a while, right?
First time in a
Here in
while,
Missouri.
and great to be here with the Prince of West Butler County.
Yes, and we have the Prince of Webster Groves, Joe Lakin, best hair in Missouri politics. So glad you could join us.
Thanks for having me.
So, Joe, the first thing that struck me was good night for Democrats. A lot of times these national trends, Missouri Republicans still win. But it's interesting. I thought about the first campaign I ever worked on was Mark Richardson. Imagine if he had stepped back and thought a bad night for Republicans would be 111 House seats, 24 Senate seats, and sweeping statewide. The bar is different.
Yeah, certainly, and you make a great point. I mean, you look at this, and Republicans for really 10 years have won everything we've been involved in. And on Tuesday, a couple places, St. Louis County particularly, I think some challenges for us moving forward. that need to be addressed. I think candidate quality is a big part of that. But at the end of the day, when Missouri Democrats declare victory after retaining super minorities, losing all of the statewide for the first time in over 100 years, and lose the U.S. Senate race by 13 points, I think it speaks to the position Republicans sit in this state.
Ryan Burke, there's some truth to that. There's also some truth to the fact that every possible metric has been stacked against Democrats in the state, really since Todd Aiken talked about rape. However, you found a floor maybe. And I think that is something, if I'm a Missouri Democrat, I'm happy on election night because maybe we've found the bottom, we've got some institutions we've set up to try to move forward.
Well, the ball's always bouncing, and I think both caucus operations showed their strength this election cycle, and certainly something to carry over to next cycle when we'll have presidential turnout, which will help Democrats here in the state of Missouri.
Always tends to, right?
It helps Democrats turn out, younger voters, voters of color, which is sure to help us up and down the ballot.
Let's talk about this U.S. Senate race, Ryan Burke. Look, I've met Trudy Bush Valentine. Good person, genuine person, ran the best race. I kind of felt like this race might have been over in August when the Schmidt won the primary. Going to be very hard to beat him. She did, though, I think an underrated point. She kept her commitment. She fully funded that race, kept the standard high enough that you could see some of these state legislative wins. But in the end, was anybody going to beat Eric Schmidt in November?
It doesn't look like anyone would have beat him, and Trudy ran as good a race as anyone would have, put in the funds, and as you say, probably saved a lot of these state legislative districts with her spending at the top of the ticket, her helping to fund turnout operations, help Democrats up and down. I don't think she'll get enough credit for that, and I just hope people in Missouri remember that she did that.
Joe Lakin, I mean, Eric Schmidt comes in, wins the primary. The national party didn't have to spend a dime here. This was a given race from the moment Schmidt won that election. Strength of Eric Schmidt, strength of the Republican Party, or the weakness of you having to swipe your card twice to fill up your truck.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, I mean, you look back at the primary and Schmidt's margin in that, I think was very surprising to a lot of people. And look, at the end of the day, I think Republicans, myself especially, doing this for a living, are looking for low drama races, finding candidates who aren't making easy races hard. And at the end of the day, tip your cap to the Attorney General. I mean, he won by a huge margin in the primary, won by a big margin in the general election. And if you told me sort of what had happened nationally, some of those races we thought were competitive around the country, I would have thought our race would have been a little closer than it was. And he kind of kept it in a safe column all fall, and that's what you're looking for.
Robert, let's hop in the DeLorean for a second. Let's go back to early August. With the environment of the people that voted in Missouri this week, you look back, good night for Democrats. Democrats did better than they've done in a long time. Let's factor in now Eric Greitens the nominee. And you figure the independent stays in that race. If the win number is 45% in that situation, first of all, you have a bunch of national money come in, but probably on both sides. Could Trudy Bush in that 3-0 race against Eric Greitens got 45%?
Yeah, and I think all of us in the consulting world were looking at the primary knowing exactly what it was.
Yeah.
If Greitens wins that primary, we're in a dramatically different environment for this November election, and Democrats could have won the U.S. Senate race.
So, Joe, you tell me. Let's go back to August. Eric Greitens wins the primary. You have the independent candidate stays in with probably $10 million. The national folks have to come in and prop up Greitens, which may cost the Republicans a seat somewhere else. Could Trudy Bush, if that win number is 45%, could she have won that race?
Yeah, I think she could have. And I think if you look nationally, Democrats, especially in congressional races, did a really nice job meddling in primaries, sort of the old Claire McCaskill playbook. And while Schmidt probably won that by a margin that he was never going to get caught, it's amazing what early investment can do to sort of change the trajectory of a race. And you look at that, had they sort of pushed through, I think it is a state that could have been on the board if Greitens was the nominee. And fortunately for Republicans, like I said, no drama race is a big win in the state.
So Ryan Burke, big win for you personally, the Democratic Party, and Tracy McCreary. This race was probably, that district's a little deceptive, right? It comes a little further south in South County. Therefore, a few more Republicans in it. But Tracy McCreary ended up winning a race that Republicans were very confident about going to Election Day. She won it handily, 9 points, right?
Well, there's three things that drove her race. She supports increasing teacher pay. Most Missourians agree with her on that. Most Missourians agree with her on standing with Roe v. Wade. And third, she was supported by labor unions. That carried the day for her.
There was also a labor union I think she made particular use of their endorsement. That's the cops, right?
I mean, the endorsement from the police union was huge for Tracy. It's really hard for you to call someone to defund the police candidate when the police have endorsed her. And not only that, but her tax cut vote during the special session was also huge. I mean, it's difficult to paint someone as an extremist when they work across the aisle to get things done.
Let me ask you this, though. You've got, there are certain issues that you could, in the suburbs, that are very toxic for Democrats. If you have to own the Black Lives Matter agenda, right, or on whatever the merits are of it, it's not popular in a district like hers, a district that's Democrat, but could have went either way. I just felt like she had a huge backing. Jay Cummel, the guys in labor, invested heavily in her, but what they invested in was ads showing she was endorsed by the police. If a Democrat can be endorsed by the police, that's a big thing for a race, right?
Well, absolutely, and you know, Joe may disagree with me, but if policemen are going to get an increase in their pay, it's most likely going to be Democrats voting for that increase in pay. And so I think that going into the future, especially in St. Louis County, the police association is going to have to look at becoming more bipartisan to get more Democrats into office who are going to be standing with the police union when it comes to officer pay, et
If you're a
cetera.
Democrat that wants to flip a seat or win a competitive race in 24, obviously call Ryan Burke. But
course,
after you
yeah.
call Ryan Burke, after you call Jay Cummel, after you go down the list of folks, you call Joe Patterson and Matt Gracielis, right? That
Absolutely,
endorsement
yeah.
inoculates
Yeah,
you.
especially in St. Louis County. I grew up with Joe. We've been friends since we were 13 years old. He's a good man. I think they're doing a good job over there. Appreciate the support on Tracy's race, and I hope they do that in the future.
Joe Lakin, if you're a Democrat right now running, you look at Tracy McCurry, terrific candidate by all accounts. That police endorsement, your best hit on a suburban Democrat is going to be doesn't back the cops. If they have that police endorsement, those cops are out there walking in a parade with them, walking doors in television ads. That's probably your best play as a Democrat, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not in the business of giving Democrats advice on how to win races, but you know, I think we've been watching for years and wondering why Democrats don't find some ways to cross over on these issues to inoculate from some of these hits. And you know, I think Tracy's win was a big win for Missourians who want their taxes cut and are pro-police. And for so long, you know, Democrats have avoided those issues and voted the wrong way on them. And you know, people like to yell and scream when they get called a defunder, but if the shoe fits. And in St. Louis County, you know, Tracy finally unlocked that box a little bit, but it's not that challenging. But for so long, Democrats have played base politics, and then they get base votes and nobody else.
Boy, and that is, I mean, I really think there's a lot of truth. There's a national issues, there's currents, but at the end of the day, I'm not sure you're not right about that. But you can't fit that slipper on if there's a cop endorsement wrapped around that foot, right?
Well, we certainly can try, but unfortunately the shoe didn't fit.
Hoover didn't run a bad race, though. The guy made a huge financial commitment. He made that thing 9 points. Look, that's a solid victory. But I mean, he went all in and made it a competitive race.
Yeah, credit to him. You know, I've been around candidates all the time saying they're going to do this or do that, and they end up short on the commitments they make. But you know, it's one of those you look back in hindsight, maybe never winnable if we knew sort of what the national environment ended up doing. Yeah. But all we can do is look at history to determine what we think the environment's going to be. And for so long, you know, tied races in a midterm like that would break hard our way. And I think for the first time in a long time, they did not.
So I was excited to have you on because you do work now all over the country. I think Republicans I talk to, not just here, but do work around the country, they were fired up for a big win Tuesday night. And while it was a good night in Missouri, right, it was not that great night that you're accustomed to. I'm telling you, it's bizarre to me. You have a president, not that popular, especially in a place like Missouri. You have gas is enormously expensive. Inflation's high. The world's at war. Why was there not a good night for the opposition party?
Well, I think there's a number of things, but you know, as I looked at it, I think it's interesting to see the impact that governor's races actually had on everything else. And as a Republican, I never thought that the House majority would have won by New York Republicans, but that's what it looks like is going to happen. The incumbent Democrat governor ran a terrible race in New York. You look at a state like Florida. Republicans blew it out with a strong governor. A place that I do a bunch of work in Iowa, right here in the Midwest, just north of here, we knock off 2 state Senate Democrats. We pick up the 1 competitive congressional, knock off a 40-year state treasurer incumbent, beat the attorney general and the governor and U.S. senator, both win by 10-plus points. And so I think this is really a big night for people who care about candidate quality. These races were really pretty localized, which is why I don't think there's one big thing to glean that it went one way or the other. I think you look at state by state, really unique results based on what the candidates in those states were talking about.
Remember, you've worked for the Missouri House Democrats on the campaign trail and in the Capitol. Been a long time since they had a good night. They had a really good night. They maybe found the bottom and could pivot forward. Why?
Well, Chris Quay did a
Yeah.
great job, and candidate recruitment, leading her caucus, a great ground game throughout the state. Again, Trudy Bush Valentine may not get enough credit, but helped fund
Absolutely. She
turnout
deserves it.
throughout the state. And hopefully that this is an inflection point by which the House Democrats are on the rebound and continue to invest in candidate recruitment in field, but also in trying to match the paid communication spending disparity that we see right now. The House Republicans outspend the House Democrats something like 10-1, and we still picked up seats. So hopefully donors are starting to realize maybe not a good investment on that side. Maybe they start coming home to the Democrats, and we can be more competitive there.
Joe, you hit on candidate equality. I hit the state in my F-150, drove around. I watched Ashley Awning work over two people that I have every doubt, no doubt, was going to be Republicans. Candidate equality mattered. I saw it in action.
Yeah, I think right here in St. Louis County, one of our clients, Brad Christ, he has a competitive primary, gets outspent by like $100,000 in that primary. He wins almost 80-20, turns around in the general election, wins by almost 10 points, a district that was basically 50-50 with Trump and Biden. So I think it's a situation where you see that candidate quality, and the overperformers, as you go back and look at the data, are good candidates who speak like their district, act like their district, and share the values of their district.
A few seconds left. Did abortion matter?
Of course it did. I mean, throughout the country, you did see this dynamic. So in red states or pink states where abortion rights really were at stake, you saw an increase in Democratic turnout. You saw an increase in persuadables going the Democratic way. In blue states, where that was not the case, like New York, where Joe talked about, it was the opposite. And so it did have an effect on the race, a little different than we thought, but voters are smart enough to know.
I didn't see a pro-choice wave, but I did see the pro-choice issue. There's no other reason some of these people would have flipped. They've been voting Republican. The economy's awful. The world's at war. They can't feel good about the state of government. There's a reason they switched. The only variable I could point to was abortion.
Yeah, I think a wave is the result of two things. One, sort of a value set, and two, a turnout disparity. And what abortion did was dissipate the turnout disparity that we normally would have seen. And had that turnout disparity gone away, the values would have put Republicans over the top. But I think Democrats showed up in large part because of that.
All right, Burke, we have a time disparity. So who won the week?
The working families in the Midwest, the Workers' Rights Amendment over in Illinois passed. It's going to give more collective bargaining rights to working families, increase pay, take-home pay for workers. So another win.
I'm not sure you didn't win the week. That was a very good night. I've watched you have to have some tough nights with some good campaigns. It was fun to see you have a good night. Who won the week?
I'd say State Treasurer Scott Fitzpatrick won by 22 points, won every county in the state in the primary, won all but 4 in the general. Great future leader for the state.
Viewers of this program got to watch him for a half hour. You did see a guy who could be governor of the state of Missouri one day.
Absolutely.
I mean, he just has that poise, the seriousness, and he can stand shoulder to shoulder with his opponent and debate him. I had a high respect for that.
Yeah.
I'm going to break the rule. I would say Crystal Quay, but I'm going to break it down even lower. There's 2 reps I got to see in action, knocking doors, Betsy Fogel, Ashley Awning. A lot of folks predicted they wouldn't be back to Jeff City, but they knocked more doors than the mailman and turned that around. It's kind of fun to see 2 people that take it seriously. Good folks get returned after some hard work. We hope you'll come back in 3 weeks. We'll take our Thanksgiving break, as you know I like to eat, and be back here to talk This Week in Missouri Politics. We'll probably bring a U.S. Senator action. 3 weeks. Have a happy Thanksgiving.
This Week in Missouri Politics is sponsored by the Missouri Automobile Dealers Association, Ameren, Spire, and Sterling Bank.